Hey everyone, Yasin here, and welcome to another episode of Pointy Chins, where I take you through my art journey. Alright, so we're going to be mostly concentrating on goddesses again this episode. And to start with, let's talk about interest. So I don't really, I don't know, some goddesses I like much more than others. And with her, she's the goddess of continence, which is something I imagine people would pray for if they perhaps are having to use the washroom or something, and there's none available, and they have to hold it for a while. Maybe she's the goddess who you'd pray to then. And I figure she's very, determined and disciplined and things, but she struggles with it. She's not one of those at peace people who is very calm naturally. She's more one of those people who really tries hard to be like, no, I must remain calm. I must center myself in things, and not really someone who things come naturally to. But Fela Mariatni, that's a hard name. Later I'll change the spelling, but yeah. She's very different. She is that type of very calm person. She just has a strong center to her, very accepting to anything that comes. So yeah, she's very patient, and yeah, her name is so long because it was designed so that you would have to take a while to say her name, so that it forces you to be somewhat patient. And she won't respond if you don't say her entire name, because that's the way she is. Now, with the goddess of poison, what I was thinking about was, I kind of had an idea of this kind of cool, dark, maybe a bit alluring goddess, but at the same time, I wanted her to have very vibrant colors, kind of the way, poisonous animals have very bright colors. I'm not super happy with how she turned out, because she, as it says here, she looks kind of fishy. There's a bit of a mermaid feeling to her with her clothes, and I mean she's got these two they're pants, but they kind of flare out, so they resemble mermaid fins, and I'm not sure if that's entirely what I wanted to go for, but I am sort of satisfied with like black with maybe greens, just because green feels like a generic poison color, but also yellows, like very bright yellows, reds, oranges, these all kind of tend to denote, in nature anyway, poison. So that was the thing. Didn't really like her face here. Here it was a lot better. It felt like, yeah, I've got the expression, and that's something that's really important for me, to get the expression right. So in terms of importance, I would say the most important thing is that, like, the face, does it capture the personality of the person I'm going for? If I've got that, the rest can be altered to match the face. But if I don't have that, then I'm really lost. So then after that, I think about design, what would look good, what colors would they wear, and try and flesh out the design in that way. But that's much more likely to change, whereas the initial capturing the person, usually that doesn't change too much. I mean, there are exceptions where I do make some pretty big changes. Like in this case, there's a pretty big change between the initial side view I did, and then I realized, like, this doesn't feel dangerous enough, and it doesn't feel like she's confident enough. Yeah, she didn't feel impressive. And here's some random faces. So it's nice to do this, just because this other way of thinking is very demanding and very analytical. And so when I do just random faces, it gives me a chance to kind of get a break from that. And although there's not much in terms of drawing on a single page, especially with the more difficult ones, I find it very, very tiring. And that's likely because I just don't have enough practice with design. But just when I invest a lot of thought into something, it tends to wear me out. So rather than just keep on drawing designs and end up doing bad designs, I find that when I'm tired, I'll try and do something different to give my brain a rest. And I think that's something that's good in general. For instance, if let's say you're studying anatomy a lot, and at first you're kind of absorbing information, but at some point it just gets too much, then I think breaks are really important. And break doesn't have to be you stop drawing. It can just be like, well, what kind of drawing are you doing? If you're doing something very intense and focused, maybe doing something a bit more free and abstract and loose will serve as a break. So here's Zahara. She's the goddess of the eclipse. And the way I think of these goddesses are, a lot of times I think of them in a video game where if, I don't know if you've played the game Suikoden, but it's a game where you recruit up to 108 characters. And I think of them kind of like that. Like if this was a game, you would recruit certain goddesses, and recruiting certain ones meant you couldn't recruit others because they didn't get along. And then in the end, I imagined you'd have like 50 on your side or something like that. And then with her, I think of her as someone that is more of she casts debuffs on you. So if she's in your party, she stays in the back row. So no one on your side is facing her. And then she does this eclipse thing. So the enemy that's facing her gets blinded. And so that's why she's very useful. I feel like she would be very powerful on the field. If this was like a traditional RPG, I guess it would be the back row. If it was something like a card game, maybe there are rows as well, and then she would just be in the back row of that one too, and you would cast it. In a way, it doesn't mean it's going to be a game or it's not going to be a game or anything like that. It's more like I find that having a focus really helps when you're designing, because it makes it so you can imagine things better, I feel anyway. And because I like RPGs, I really like thinking of these types of things because they make me more excited about the thing I'm working on. So Vestra's design was really important to be kind of good looking. I felt like some of them, they don't have the best taste. And other ones, they really care about what they wear. And because Vestra's the goddess of fashion, she really cares about wearing things. I like the back actually more than the front. But of course, these are all going to be revisited. I thought she would have like a kind of a pouch that's in a unique shape, and everything's sort of unique. And I'm thinking that a lot of the goddesses wear clothes designed by Vestra. And so what she likes tends to permeate, especially with the newer goddesses. So May is a goddess, and a lot of these, I've done the faces. You might remember the faces from the previous episode, but so that's the first thing, is get the face down and then, work on bodies. And she's very practical, and just likes gardening and things like that. So she's not really worried about fashion, but I still wanted her to have sort of a feeling like maybe Vestra still designed the clothes to be, all right, well, they can be practical, but they don't have to be completely ugly as well. So with Atlas, I wanted her to have this sort of a fresh, young person who has a lot of charisma and kind of ordinary. And that contrasts with the Zahara types, who are much more, flamboyant in their dress. This is something I feel I really wanted to work on a lot, is to have variety between characters. And so, for instance, with Marla, and I don't think I did a good job on the face here. I felt the face was better in the previous version, and that happens a lot when I'm doing these designs. But anyway, with her, she's a lot more simple because it just suits to her personality. I figure she's the goddess of history, so she's more interested in studying stuff than like getting super dressed up. And Zelfi, though she's the goddess of architecture, I think is the opposite, where it matters to her how she looks, and she wants to create sort of an imposing and powerful view, and so for her, she thinks of that with architecture as well, that she wants it to have a certain type of look, an iconic statement. Whereas with the Goddess of History, it's like, I'm not really worried about fashion and all that. I just like studying. So yeah, here's Elfie flying. I figure it's all quite rigid, so it kind of moves with her. It doesn't have a lot of flow to it. And that's just because I figure architecture usually is more rigid, right? So keep her in that type of rigid mood. So Marion, I think she is she's pretty cool. Maybe she doesn't look cool, but her thing, she has these things called the Flames of Resolve, and it's this thing on her back that produces flames. This is her divine tool. So a lot of them have divine tools, and this is hers. And basically, her power level, and if it was Dragon Ball, it would be her power level would be very variable. It changes depending on how resolved she is. So if she's kind of like, you ask her to do something to help you, maybe if she was in a battle or something, her power might not be too strong if she doesn't really believe in the cause, or if she's just doing a favor because you're a friend or something. Maybe she's not that resolved. But if someone really, if she has a cause to fight for and she's really emotionally invested, then her Flames of Resolve go like, and she gets a lot more powerful. And so I imagine like when she's super resolved, she can probably, catch up to the Goddess of Speed, or maybe not surpass the Goddess of Speed, but certainly get pretty close in terms of speed, or become extremely strong. But again, it's very conditional, and she can't really, lie to herself. So it doesn't really work to say, yeah, I really believe in this thing, and then they're not going to come out unless they really, like the flame wing things, are not going to emerge unless she's truly resolved. And so I kind of like that idea of a character who could be really kind of useless, still okay, but, not really a top tier by any means. And then sometimes under certain circumstances, they would get more resolved. So I imagine in the case of an RPG, if you had this character in your team, it would be that if your other teammates die, perhaps, like they all get wiped out, and she's the last one on the field, maybe because her teammates are wiped out or knocked out, then that would make her more resolved and more determined, or maybe vengeful or something, and then so she would get more powerful the weaker your position is in a battle, and maybe she could save you from a complete defeat just by the fact that she's actually resolved. So Shia is the goddess of tactics, and it was kind of important for me to have a hat. I don't know why though, but it felt like, no, this is important. If you've ever seen Star Trek The Next Generation, there's a character called Guinan who, played by Whoopi Goldberg, who has like these types of hats. And I don't know, it felt like she also must have a hat. So that was her. And I think in the story she'll probably play a pretty important role. I think, again, going back to Suikoden, it was the first video game I played where a tactician was really important, as opposed to most things which focus on, how much damage you're doing. So, here's a really strong character, and here's an even stronger character, and no one really cares about strategy or tactics or how to actually win a battle. And so I feel like Shia would fill that role of a person who probably gives your characters buffs, or you can exploit things. Maybe you get hints on what would be good combinations of characters to use with other characters. Here's Naha, the goddess of earth. I really like how she looks. There's not a lot of them I don't like how she looks, but this one I really do. I feel like that works. That looks tough. I like these sleeve things. I like how they are bigger, because she's kind of a bigger, she has a bigger body type, but because everything is kind of big, it makes it fit and work, and the big hair as well. And I think this is something I really strive for, which is to make diverse characters, but also to show that different body types can still look really good, and it's more how you work with them. So, for instance, if she was wearing a very skin-tight outfit, that might work for a more athletic character, but for her, it wouldn't look that good, or at least I can't really imagine a way it would look so good. But then working with her silhouette, using more boxy shapes that complement her, I feel that helps a lot. With Zaya, the important thing is that this is all sort of translucent, so you can see her body, and she's a goddess of lust. Not much to her. I feel like I didn't quite do a good job with her design, but I kind of know what I'm going for, like a very thin sheer fabric that kind of has room for a lot of folds and things. So you see parts of her, but other parts are sort of obscure, and that intensifies the feeling of lust. Here's a picture of Wraith. Didn't have him completely solved yet, so he still has this spalder, which isn't going to be in his final design. It doesn't look like that anyway. It's very different. So his design changes a lot, but I don't mind how it looks. Some silly faces. And I like how I liked how the black looked with the white. I felt like this looks really cool with the black and white. And here's a little logo I made where I used whiteout to write Wraith, and then I used black marker around it, and I used black ink that's filling him in to create this type of explosion. And I feel like it looks a lot better in person. A lot of the things that I draw in the sketchbook, they kind of look a lot cooler in the sketchbook than they do digitally, but I can't really share that. But I tried with this one anyway. I took a photo. This is what it looks like a lot more in person. Like the whiteout and the black actually catch the light in such a way that if you move the page, this highlight like shifts back and forth if you tilt the page in different ways. And I thought that was really cool, but I didn't know how to capture that in an actual thing. So unfortunately, but I'm kind of satisfied with that logo for Wraith. So here's Liza and Yenna. I found both of these two were kind of difficult. With her, she's got these stupid boob things. I wanted in anime and manga, there's this torpedo tits thing, which basically it doesn't sound very good, but it's a certain brush shape, and I wanted her to feel very watery and full of liquid, and so that felt like the appropriate shape to go for. And I also wanted her to be wearing a type of material that was actually like it deceived the eye and made it look like there's water. So I imagine if you stared at this, you would actually see like movement within these areas, maybe like little water bubbles kind of flowing around. And again, it's not something I know how to do, but it's something that I've kind of got in my head. So with Yenna, again, I've mentioned this before, the goddess of peace, how her hair is two different colors and then it intertwines to represent two entities or two forces kind of coming together and becoming harmonized and peaceful. And I'm not really happy with her design. It definitely needs, like, these two need to be reworked. I think Liza looks better than Yenna, but at the same time, Yenna's not supposed to be super fashionable. She's supposed to be a type of person who means well. And I mean, maybe you know people like this. They're very kind. They're nice people, but they kind of fail if they try hard to look good or something. Maybe they wouldn't know exactly how to put on makeup if they tried or something like that. Where it's like, oh, you feel for them, but that's just not their strong suit. But in the thing they are strong at, so for her with diplomacy and things, she's very good. So that's again something I really wanna convey, is that the designs aren't. I'm not trying to make something to show like this is the coolest design ever, and I'm so good at designing. I want to do something that's more complementing a certain personality, a certain a character. So here I worked on some more, I don't know if they're called sigils or what, but anyway, these crests. So this one's longevity, and I wanted to represent sort of a tree, because trees, live for a very long time, and so that's where that came from. And then this is sort of reminiscent of a tree, but also like arrows going up, like you start at a smaller stage and then you get bigger as you grow up, I guess it's like a growing up, and then that's the idea. With numbers, it's just 2 on each side, so 2 plus 2 equals 4. You get 2 dots, 2 dots, 4 dots. Philosophy, not some of these I don't know exactly what I was thinking, but kind of like maybe the Illuminati, the eye. I sort of think of these as like closed eyes, thinking. Again, not sure. Biology, this represents a cell, and this represents the double helix, the DNA, so kind of self-explanatory. Chemistry and alchemy, I felt of having 2 different elements that when combined something happens. With sport, I felt like in a lot of sports you have things like bats and balls and different variants of these, so these kind of represent that. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but that's kind of it. And then I was just trying to make a graphic designy shape. Psychology, this is just a brain, and this is the 2 halves of the 2 hemispheres of the brain. Finance and accounting, this just pretty self-explanatory, represents the scales and just what is being measured. Logic and deduction, it's kind of a reference to computers with the input-output and the on and off switches, and just something that's very logical. Poetry, this is kind of indicative of just writing and like cursive text, which feels kind of, italic text feels poetic somehow. Engineering and mechanics, this represents a gear. Martial arts, this represents kind of like either a weapon or a strike or something. I don't know, I feel like, kicks or punches or things can have this feeling to them. Song represents like a bird's beak singing. Maybe these are sound waves. Madness, sort of just a confusion, spirals going in different directions, not really being sure of things. Crafts. This is a basket, and these are like pins for just different things used for crafts. Cosmetics, this represents like lips and eyes with mascara on them. Puzzles and riddles, this is supposed to be that Chinese thing where you put the fingers inside and then they get stuck, and I don't know what this part is. Baking, bread, cooking, these ones are pretty self-explanatory. Romance, this kind of is evocative of like a necklace, and these are roses. Like very, very, very simplified versions, but that's kind of the feeling. I'm totally fine with people not knowing what these mean, so long as they kind of look cool. That's important. So flexibility is kind of like just a thing that is flexible. It can bend. Drink, these are bubbles, and this is like a mug of something. Meditation, thinking about the third eye. So in this case, there's a thing with meditation to focus on the third eye, which is kind of in between your 2 eyes and a bit above. There's a spot in your forehead, and so these represent the closed eye, and this represents the opening of the third eye. This is the sea, pretty pretty explanatory. The deep, so basically what is under the sea. So you take the sea, there's stuff underneath it. That's what's in the deep. Metal, just an ingot of something. Gems, again, gems. Decay, just something being broken down, and then you get kind of the busted thing, whatever it was. These are mushrooms for fungi. Trees, it's kind of like longevity, but it's a bit different, but similar. It's just trees. Rocks are kind of the flip of a gem, and it's just because gems are also, minerals and stuff, so it's just fine. You have these rocks, you have these gems. Blood is just blood. The bowels represent intestines. Clouds are clouds, and fear, I put like it doesn't, I don't know if it's a spider. It doesn't really look like a spider. It's got 8 legs, but this one needs to be reworked. But it's that idea of just something that is innately terrifying to a lot of people. So now that I have all the crests, I have to work on these. So this is Hanassah, and I figure she is Adoran's. Adoran again is the Primarch, the head honcho guy, who most of these goddesses are actually almost all of the goddesses are his children, and I imagine there were gods at one point which were also his children. And Hanassah is sort of interesting because she's Adoran's mother, but she was still supportive. She still loves him and is very doting on him, even though he killed or removed. I haven't decided exactly what it's going to be yet. Deposed her grandchildren. So there used to be 50 gods, 50 goddesses, and they were all carefully chosen. And then Adoran discovers that, I think I mentioned it already, that one of his sons is going to overthrow him. So then he gets rid of the sons, and she's very supportive, keeps him alive. Something that I think is sort of interesting about her, though, is that I still have to work out with her husband, so Adoran's father, but I feel like he doesn't let her have immortality for a long time out of spite or something, and then Adoran bestows it upon her afterwards. When he becomes in charge. So she's able to extend the life of others, but not really her own, and that's why she's quite old. Could be something else, I could decide to do something completely different, but that's kind of her type. And she's not an awful person. I mean, she likes to learn and stuff, but I would say her love for Adoran is perhaps a fatal flaw. Aspirate, I wanted to make someone who is conscious of the nerdiness of her position, and they're kind of new goddesses and old goddesses. So the old goddesses are the ones that were part of the original 50 goddesses, when there were 50 gods and 50 goddesses. But then when the 50 gods are removed, there are all these vacancies, and so those spots need to be filled by new goddesses, and she's one of the new ones. And the old god of numbers, he's kind of nerdy, and she's also nerdy at heart, but she doesn't want to be seen that way, so she tries to be like fashionable and cool and stuff, and hide that she's really into that nerdiness when she's around people, but when she's alone, she's completely a nerd. And she's awkward and, enjoys puzzles, and a pretty, inoffensive person. Maybe not nice in a way. Like, I don't imagine she's very generous or thoughtful, but that's because she's so antisocial. She just doesn't know anything about how to be a social person. With Cleffa, she's the goddess of philosophy, and she's got this inheritance from she's a new one replacing an old one, and I think the old god would have this hat, and she's sort of got that. Very fine person, I guess. Although she tends to think her ideas are right all the time, and she's kind of looking down on other people, and she thinks she's good at listening, and she's really not. She's one of those people who act like they're like, oh yeah, I'm really interested in learning, but secretly she kind of feels like she's already made up her mind, that she's read a lot and studied a lot, and so she doesn't really need to change her opinion. With Nija, I wasn't happy with this design at all. It didn't feel right. I had a sort of an idea for a goddess of biology, but I couldn't quite get it, and this didn't really match it. But I tried again, and I feel like I nailed it here. And so I went through this process of kind of thinking about what I wanted to do. She had like a diminished chin here. Like, should I do that with a long nose? And then I thought, no, let's make her chin bigger and more boxy and almost a bit masculine. Like maybe she's handsome. You would describe her as handsome. And then that felt a lot more right. So a lot of what I'm doing is listening to my feelings, and I think that's a very important way to design. It's also kind of difficult, especially when you don't have a feeling at certain times, which is why I have days where the designs aren't so good. But when you feel something's off, I think it's a good idea to explore that. With Marga, the goddess of sport, she's just like a pretty nice, athletic person, cheerful, likes to play and whatever, takes her sport very seriously. Evelyn is kind of creepy, I guess. She's the goddess of chemistry, and she's very interested in seeing things like turn into other things, like results of things, like her experiment. She wants them to be interesting, and so she's very focused on her experiments, but kind of not too concerned with morals or ethics or what her experiments would be used for. She's just interested in the results. So now with Honora, I already kind of did her outline in a previous design, but I talked to Flavia and Maddie Blitz, an artist who's very good, and they were suggesting that I do more with pushing the shapes, and so like I could push certain elements like the bone and make it really stand out. And I did these thumbnails, and honestly, I didn't really like it that much. I felt like, yeah, maybe the design is a bit better, and I can kind of understand that, and that's something really important. And I think I would take away the fact that I should be using thumbnails more and thinking about basic design when I do the bigger design. But with her personality, she was supposed to feel lame in a way, like someone who just isn't that cool, or isn't, and I'm not saying these designs are really cool, but they felt like a bit too cool for her. So I actually preferred the original design just because it had this awkwardness to it. And again, it's not really the way I see people designing now, where you allow for awkwardness. It seems like the thing is to make everyone cool and everyone really detailed, or have a very strong design language that just repeats. And for me, I prefer, maybe it was in older designs, it happened more, but where you can have variety, and like someone's like, well, he's not really cool, he's not really strong, or she's not really beautiful or something, and that's okay. So Mara, the goddess of psychology, again, a lot of these people are based off people I know, usually multiple people. I tend not to just do a one for one, like this is a person and I know this person and I'm going to make a goddess based off her, but rather just like this is an amalgamation of different people that kind of have similar traits. And I think she's the type of person who is pretty good at what she does. She's a good therapist, but maybe not necessarily the best at solving problems, but very good at listening to people and offering her advice. But after a long time, she won't just give you advice to begin with. You really have to explain things. And but at the same time, I figure she puts so much of her patience into her patients. She puts so much of this consideration and care that when it comes to her own personal relationships, she doesn't have a lot to offer. And so she isn't that patient personally in her own relationships, I imagine she's a bit snappy. But when it comes to her job, then yeah, she'll really devote her energy to promoting psychology, to being very careful and a good listener, but maybe not so much outside of her profession. Faye, the goddess of accounting, not much to this design. I wanted something based off kind of like Chinese stuff. I wrote that she's materialistic. She's really more interested in rising up in the ranks, and she's very practical, but not so interested in morality or ethics or anything like that. With Tarana, she kind of looks silly in this form. I imagine it full body, but she's the goddess of logic, and so she's very blunt and logical, but again doesn't think too much about feelings. I guess that's something these two share, is she's much more about pragmatics and solving problems, and she takes rules very seriously. I think both of these people take rules very seriously, and they want to perform well. Elise is the goddess of poetry. She's very idealistic, head in the clouds, just thinks about romance a lot more than she actually has experiences. I think she spends a lot of time dreaming and thinking of things happening, and is not actually too social or communicative on the outside, but that she spends more internally thinking. Like, she has a very rich imagination, but she's naive because she doesn't actually have much life experience, and perhaps not too much wisdom, though I think she can kind of guess at things that would be wise and write interesting characters perhaps, but not really wise herself. Shanda is the goddess of engineering and mechanics, and I think she's the type of person who likes to reverse engineer stuff, just likes building stuff, likes tinkering. She's quite friendly. She's fine in a team. She doesn't need to be like the leader. She's just, if she is a leader, she's very happy, working and having good teamwork and solving problems and things like that. Karis is the goddess of fighting. And I think of her as very cool in a way, like not just like the design, but kind of the type of person where you look at them and you're like, oh, they're pretty cool, pretty admirable. And she likes to fight a lot, and I think she teaches others how to fight. So I'm imagining she teaches the goddess of war how to fight, whereas Thea, who's the goddess of strength, doesn't really teach Madra, because she doesn't like Madra, because Madra likes war, and Thea really doesn't. So Valrena, this design, I'm really not happy with it. I was thinking of some kind of megaphone type thing, something that transmits sound waves. She's the goddess of song, so I wanted these types of amplification things, and that I thought her ability is that she can mimic any sound she's heard. So I think that would be pretty useful. I mean, it's not like it's an original idea, but I think it's something that would be good for a tool. And then I was kind of asking myself this, because I was designing when my brain felt like mush, and I was wondering, is it better to just draw when you're brain dead or not? And I think in the end, it's good to draw, but it's not necessarily good to design when you're brain dead. I think these are two different things. Again, I imagine a professional designer doesn't get to have this option to not design. They just have to go to work and design, and whether they feel like their brain is in it or not, they just have to create stuff. But personally, I feel like that's kind of a bad thing. It's a side effect of a culture where everything has to be immediate and just like get it done. And professionalism means getting things done, as opposed to professionalism means doing a job you really can feel like is the best you can do. Which I kind of wish that was the way it is, but I do understand why, you would need things to be more, especially in this day and age. I can understand, but I don't necessarily approve of the speed at which things are done these days. So again, really didn't like her design, so I decided to change it up. I kind of like this a lot more. I kind of butchered where I put the mark on her cheek. So, but I really like this face. I like the white lips. I think that works really well. The top is this kind of teal color, and then the bottom is white. Felt like, yeah, that's a cool design. So with her crest thing, I had to go through another iterative process, and that was the original design, which is it's that the songbird beak thing, and then I thought maybe do this. This felt like too much like that volume sign, but I can see why you would do it that way, and then in the end I settled on this because it's got more of a simplified design. If you attach the silhouette, kind of fits. So I like that one a lot more than the original. Venita is the goddess of madness. So with certain goddesses, like the goddess of madness, I'm not really sure who would pray for madness. So I decided there would be this kind of thing. So right now I have this idea that there is a system. Right now it's just called the belief system. I might change it. Obviously I'll change it to something else. But it's that there are two types of prayer. And one type is the type you pray with your, like, you ask for something that you really want. You're praying for something. And the other is sort of an involuntary prayer. Maybe it's like, it's not technically prayer, but it's like if you obsess over something, if you have thoughts and you're just constantly thinking about these things, that if that is strong enough, that becomes like a form of prayer. So what people sometimes obsess over, or in this case, just being mad, not actually being able to see reality, these thoughts are so powerful that they act like prayer and then create something like that. So I felt like the goddesses perhaps get their power from the belief of others, from prayers. But also there are some of them which just, if people's minds are occupied in a certain way, they get strengthened as well. I wanted a goddess of madness who's probably suffering from schizophrenia. She's paranoid, suspicious, she has delusions and things, feelings of persecution, but is still sort of part of this thing where she is a goddess and she is immortal and gets all the perks, but at the same time is actually herself suffering from mental illness. Jensa is the goddess of crafts. I figure she's quite a lot more friendly, but not at all really. She doesn't have good taste, I would say that much. She's very eccentric and eclectic, and not really too bright necessarily. Like, she's not an intellectual by any stretch, but kind. So Allura, I wrote probably not going to use this goddess. This was the goddess of cosmetics, and I eventually changed this because I wasn't happy with having a goddess of cosmetics. It didn't feel like a good a good thing. So she's not gonna stick around. But at the time, very superficial, calculating, conceited, proud. Kind of similar to the goddess of lust, I suppose, or even the goddess of romance. So she's not really needed. Laska is the goddess of puzzles and riddles. I wanted her to look confusing, so when you look at her, it's like, how does this actually work? So you can kind of see the design of her hat thing, but because of the patterns on top, it kind of confuses the issue and makes you a bit, I mean, I hope it does. That's the idea, that it makes you a bit confused. And I think she's very, she likes to play a lot. And okay, so I say she has an ability called Question Time, where she can pull one person into an alternate dimension where they have to 1 hour to solve a riddle or a puzzle. And if they solve it, then they're given a reward, and if not, they're freed, but only after an hour has elapsed. So if she, in a game, the way it would work is, and of course this game probably couldn't be made, it's just too complicated, but she would kind of teleport a character into a different dimension, and then in order to free that, so for instance, let's say it's one of your, a guy on your, or a girl on your team, chances are it's going to be a girl because there's so many goddesses, so she'd take the other character off the field, and then they have a certain amount of time where either they can solve a puzzle, or if they can't, they're just stuck. So you remove that character. I would think of it kind of like a mini game type thing. Lyra is the goddess of baking. I think she's just kind of. I think of something, I suppose, Eastern European in my head, with she has an accent or something, and very, very quiet, patient, kind of keeps to herself, but she's part of this trio with the goddess of food and the goddess of cooking. They kind of all work together and are friends with each other. So here's a goddess of cooking, Minu, and here I wrote, in battle, Minu, Olana, and Lyra would create consumables which restore HP. Maybe they each have a specialty. I don't know if there's MP and HP, but maybe one creates items which restore HP, one creates items which restore MP, something like that. Who knows? But again, someone who likes cooking and doesn't really like other stuff, not really interested in politics or wider world events, but maybe likes to gossip a bit and likes to chat about people, but not really worried too much about ideas. Sylvia is the goddess of romance. I figure she's one of those people who she really thinks a lot about things. She wants to be seen as a good person because she likes that image. But secretly she's got a huge ego and she just wants to be the center of attention. She wants people to admire her. But she knows also that people admire, good people. So she'll think of herself as, I'm a good person. I'm very charitable. I care a lot. And she'll maybe try and help others to find romance, but secretly think that, deep down, maybe she doesn't actually think they deserve it. Because they're not working hard enough to establish an image the way she is. So I don't really like her as a person. I imagine she likes drama a lot, has her ideas of like the perfect romance, and she's one of the newer goddesses. I think Minu's the older goddess. So the older ones tend to be a bit more balanced and stable, and the newer ones have a lot more psychological problems, because the thing is that they were there to replace the gods that weren't there, so their selection process was a lot more quick. It was hastened to fill positions rather than picking people who were really the best candidates for those. Terania is the goddess of flexibility. I just wanted to have a contortionist goddess. It seemed like a cool idea. So I figure she's a very flexible person, very easygoing, friendly, charming, and acquiescent, just because, she's flexible. Maybe she doesn't really lead too much or have her own ideas, but is very comfortable with bending herself to fit anyone else's ideas. Rhea is the goddess of drink. I think she's very loud and just social and kind of vulgar and not at all like noble or elegant or anything like that. Johanna is the goddess of meditation. I think she's pretty young, but she's very much into her own thoughts and trying to become this type of wise and sagely person. And she's a new goddess, so she replaces, the one who was past. So with Arsha, she was the goddess of the sea, and I wasn't even going to call her Arsha. I wasn't sure. I just had the idea of a goddess of the sea. And it just felt like, well, I was just describing a personality like Arsha, and then I thought, well, it's not so bad. I mean, Space Waitress K, Arsha is from Space Waitress K, which was another story thing I was making, and it just didn't really go anywhere. It wasn't like Wraith, it didn't really take off, it more kind of crash landed. But I had a character called Arsha, and she was the captain of this ship. And so I figured it's fine if I because again, Wraith is not Affinity. Affinity is like very proper as a story, and I try not to put I don't put any Easter eggs, for instance, in it or anything like that, because I take it way too seriously. But with Wraith, I wanted to do the opposite, where I don't take it seriously, so I can have self-referential things and Easter eggs and people I know and stuff like that just in there. So Arsha's just Arsha. She's stoic, short-tempered, vulgar, independent, charismatic. Keza is the goddess of the deep, and I figure she's not a daughter of Adaran, but perhaps, or maybe she is, but she's like Adaran fell in love with a demon or something, or just something where I imagine he finds her in, like, he goes into her realm and she has her own area, like the deep. So kind of based on the fact that we're learning a lot more now about the depths of the ocean and just how unknown it is, how little we've explored. And I thought it might be interesting to have like a separate world where, I mean, you have all the land-based stuff, but there's this other realm of the deep, which is just its own stuff. And I also mentioned I had based a lot of these stories off mythology, and there is a show I've mentioned, Mahabharat, and there are just gods that are underwater, but it was a really poorly done, like, I guess they tried their best, but it was made in the 80s, I believe, and it had really terrible graphics, so it's just like regular people standing and then just a backdrop of like water, but it doesn't look like they were underwater. So anyway, I just have these thoughts in my head. So Masada is the goddess of metal. Again, a newer goddess replacing an old god. And I figured, okay, so she's just what has a lot of metal, and I thought of armor. So maybe she's like really, she has two forms. One is in full armor, and one is when she's not in full armor. And just a person who is very dense in a way, and stubborn and pragmatic. Yeah, self-righteous. Maybe she is the one who creates armor and metalwork and stuff. Vex. I liked Vex. She's the goddess of gems. I wanted her to be just cool. A lot of the designs are not necessarily color schemes I like, although they look very harmonious in color, but a lot of that is just because I only have a few water brushes that I'm using at the time with a few inks. This metal was done with a Copic marker that was, it was actually almost dead, and so I was able to get this kind of dry brush effect, and it also pulled, like, this bluish color is actually the ink that just got pulled because of the alcohol in the marker, and so it created like a very metallic look, which I thought was cool. So now I know how to get that. You just need a marker that's gray, that's almost dead, and then if you draw with ink, it'll actually pull the ink along. But anyway, with Vex, I wanted her to be more colors that I like, so teals and whites. I like that combination a lot. So that was that. Just something shiny and nice. But I think in terms of her personality, she's kind of selfish and greedy and untrustworthy. She's not necessarily a good person, but and I wouldn't say the design is good here, but that's my idea of her, like very shiny and cool looking. Pretty much the opposite of the next character, Rothrin, who's the goddess of decay. She's immoral, world-weary, pessimistic, and she has the ability to cause things to age and decay. So she's really the counter to Hanasa, which is the goddess of longevity. I'm not sure how she kind of fits in. Adaran has sisters. Hadema is one of them. That's the goddess of justice. The goddess of life is one of Adoran's sisters. I'm not sure if Rotharin's going to be one of Adoran's sisters or if he actually just had a child or where he finds her. But she's goddess of decay. Ginda is the goddess of fungi and is she's like she lives in like dark cave-like environments, very damp and kind of gross, and maybe she smells, but I think she's quite nice as a person, quite useful. Just thinking about how mushrooms are, like, well, they can be a lot of things. They could be hallucinogenic, they could be poisonous, they can be nutritious, but they're all kind of, they grow in this dank environment. And I also think about, just certain people who, maybe a person who kind of stays in a room that all the windows are shut and they don't let any light in, and they're kind of smelly and gross. And if you walk in their room, it just stinks and it's got this clammy, disgusting atmosphere. But they're not necessarily a bad person. They just don't have really good hygiene habits. So Tarasia is kind of... I figure like there's Tirania, who's the goddess of flexibility, and Tarasia. I figure would make sense to reuse some of the names, just because you get that in most cultures where you have a name and then you have like variations of that name. I mean, in English, trying to think of like full names, but you have like Bob and you have Rob and you have Todd and things like that, and they're kind of similar, but although they're shortened versions of a name, or Tom and Tim, things like that. So, well, I thought, okay, let's make her have a similar name. And she's a goddess of trees, strong, supportive, ambitious, calm, tolerant, optimistic. I think she's one of those people who you can rely on, who comes in to have a good point. Like when she comes in, she usually, if she talks, she's thought about what she's gonna say. Dharma, she's very tough, kind of like Naha, the goddess of earth, but I figure she's a bit more like she's not as charismatic, whereas Naha is quite charismatic. I think Dorma is just kind of a dense person who's stubborn and doesn't like to be looked down on in any way, and is kind of used to that. Whereas Naha kind of managed to make her fashion work for her. I think with Dorma, she kind of gets it wrong and she just looks like a big rock. That's kind of how I was thinking of her. Avencia, I'm not super happy with the design at all, but she's the goddess of blood. And in this case, I guess she's more sadistic, but she is replacing a god of blood. And with the god of blood, I think he has a very different spin on things. So when you think of blood, you often think of negative things, especially in a character design thing. But when I think of like the goddess of bones, and thinking how she's not like an undead demon person, she's just like bones. Bones are foundational. They're structural. They're rigid. They keep. They put something, or they are something that your muscles and fat and skin attach to, right? So you need them. And with blood, I think of things like blood transfusions, and someone needing blood. Maybe they gotten an injury and then they're bleeding out. Well, you would need help. Maybe she's the goddess who provides blood. But I thought, maybe maybe that was what she's supposed to be, but she's a bit crazy because she's one of the newer goddesses, so I thought of her as a bit sadistic and obsessive, and that she tried tasting blood, and then she tried blood of a demon and kind of got addicted. I have this thing where I've seen so many ideas done over and over, and I wonder how I would do a spin on it, so I kind of have this desire to do vampires and stuff, just to see how I would put a spin on it and kind of make it work. So I'm leaving that door sort of open with characters like this. That maybe there's like vampiric stuff to it, but not sure. Hurema. This is a character who's a goddess of digestion. This kind of is because of myself, because I have very irritable bowels a lot of times, and I imagine, well, who would I pray to? Well, there's got to be like a goddess of the gut, goddess of digestion, goddess of the gut. I don't know which to call her, but that she would be who you would pray to when you're sitting on the toilet and just, you want the pain to stop. Or maybe she also helps with good digestion. So, very good probiotic type stuff. I don't know. But I think, okay, so what are the bowels? Well, they're useful. I mean, you need them. They help you absorb nutrients, but they're full of shit. So I think of her as vulgar, sort of cringeworthy, awkward, but she has an ability to tell the truth or see if someone's telling the truth. She's very intuitive, and the reason is because you get like gut feelings about stuff. So that's where I was thinking about her thing. So design-wise, I was thinking she would have these kind of intestinal design elements. That was the motif. And I was thinking about having a rope obi. If you've seen Naruto, there's a character called Orochimaru who has a rope obi, and his followers also have these rope obis. It's just like a belt that holds your clothes together, and I thought that kind of resembles an intestinal shape, so maybe it goes around. I created this one because it's more rounded, but at first I created this one. It's got like these triangles, but I felt like angular things don't really suit to the gut. This has a bit more straight lines, but I kind of preferred it because it works more, whereas this is too much of the same thing with these curves. Having curves and angles can really make a design stronger. And then here was just, these are pretty much what I do in my secret sketchbook. And this was clearly not, well, I don't know if it's clear or not, but this isn't my personality that does this. Probably I did more of this type of stuff. So I feel like there's a few personalities who draw. There's me, who I don't even know if I fully draw, but I'm kind of close to one who does, who's very not that talented, not that intuitive, very analytical. Then there's one who is more intuitive and also sort of analytical, but just gets art better. And then there's this one who I think is very intuitive, but just likes to express things and wouldn't be able to draw circles and stuff, and likes to do these continuous line drawings that I feel are a bit more accurate to how I feel inside, or at least how parts of me feel, and not necessarily, built for design or anything like that. Kumori is a goddess of clouds. Again, obviously a very new goddess because she's too young to be in the old group. And I figure she's very... she's a favorite of Adoran, I imagine. Her sitting on his lap and him doting on her and stuff like that. Raki is the goddess of fear and horror, and I eventually think of like goddess of terror. I think goddess of terror sounds better than goddess of horror, so goddess of terror. And she can create illusions. I'll explain more about her later. Vasana is the goddess of astronomy and the cosmos. Probably just call her goddess of the cosmos. And she has this, you can see stars and nebula and stuff in her cosmic robe thing. Pretty cliche, but I wanted that type of powerful character who's really kind of otherworldly, I guess. Random scribble. This is no time for daydreaming. I don't know what that means. Oh, because she likes to daydream, so he's telling her off. So she's lazy. Head in the clouds, But I thought maybe she has like this weapon that fires these little... they're not very powerful, but these droplet things that go doo doo doo, and then they're not that effective. So here's Raki, just a full full version of her terror shroud, the goddess of terror. Yeah. So she has these eye things that open up every time she absorbs a new terror. The shroud has many eyes. Each eye represents a new terror she has realized. When she meets someone who has a fear or phobia she hasn't encountered before, she will stare into their mind with black, lifeless eyes until she finds their fear, and then a new eye opens and on her terror shroud, and then she can put that fear into someone else. And this thing shifts and moves like it's kind of like it's alive, and it forms the appearance of things that people are afraid of. So for instance, if they're afraid of the dark, maybe it would like look like it's expanding and it just covers everything, but what's really happening is one of these eyes opens, and then it sort of hallucinate, or it makes a person hallucinate and see their fears. So she can only use this on one person at a time. And so if she was terrifying someone and they're kind of under the spell, but there's a bunch of other people around, the other people could just see that, well, they would see her thing just with an eye open and as it really is, whereas the person viewing her would maybe see what is really scary. Like maybe if they're arachnophobic, her things would sort of look like a spider, but then maybe also they would hallucinate that they've got spiders all over their body and stuff like that. Whereas a normal person would just see a person like who's fine, doesn't have spiders on their body, but just like trying to bat off imaginary spiders. But because she would need to be focused on that person who she's terrifying, the other people could just attack her, and they're not going to be terrified because they don't have to see what she's doing. So that would make it so there's a limitation. As you may have noticed, I'm a big fan of creating a power and then creating a way to foil that power, creating conditions where sometimes things work and sometimes they can backfire. So for her, because she can only terrify one person at a time, it's more likely that she will seek out a person who's alone, probably go at nighttime, find someone who's just, walking alone, or maybe sneak into someone's room and then wake them up and then terrify them, as opposed to, going into a group of people and then just, scaring everybody, because you can't really do that. So this is Keza, the goddess of the deep. Again, she's more like a demon in a way. Maybe she's a different thing. Like maybe there are goddesses, humans, demons, shamans, or mystics, and then she's part of another race. But she has her own underwater kingdom, and trying to figure out how to hide her breasts, just because I figure if, I want to turn Wraith into an art book, and I don't want to have nudity and then have it get censored and all sorts of things. So I have to figure out how to make them more, okay, tolerable to people who are offended by boobs. So here I started doing more thumbnails again. I think these are really helpful to get a sense of what the character is. So I'll do a little thumbnail of the character and then try and base things off that design. So here's Vex. This is the one that's very, I guess the color scheme is something I like. And she wears a lot of expensive jewelry, but she's not really the type that prefers big diamonds, for instance. She won't wear jewelry just to show off. I actually think she's more of a rock hound, and that's a term I didn't know until I came to Princeton. This Princeton, British Columbia, not the university. It's a small town of about 2,000 people, and we have a lot of mining that goes around. And a rock hound is someone who, if you're not aware, they look for interesting rocks or gems or things, and you can have shows, and you take rocks and you put them in a tumbler and you polish them up, and then they are shiny and cool. And so I figure she would like to do that. And so she actually kind of gets dirty. She gets into the dusty environments and looks for rocks, and then she likes to wear them, but she's not so like vain. She's not one of those, oh, I have to be pristine and proper. But at the same time, she still wears clothes that are very clean, and I don't know. I guess she washes them a lot. Here's Rothern. Just gross design. Her clothes are all raggedy because they're all decaying. Tarazia, she was really hard. I kind of like certain things of her design. Her hair is just a tree. I think it's hair, but it's in a tree shape. And the thing with her design that was problematic was that it has this shape, and it's kind of a Christmas tree shape, but trees tend to have a trunk, and she's kind of missing a trunk. And so they're basically skinny at the bottom and fat in the middle, and then they get skinnier around out. And so working with this was kind of hard, and I thought of this where it's more like a Christmas tree, where she has like bare legs and then more of a big skirt or a tutu type thing, that you get this tree, Christmas tree like shape. And yeah, so I felt like she's okay, but doesn't really work. But again, she was a lot of trouble. I only recently figured out her design, and that was with Flavia's help. But yeah, this one's better, but I still felt like I should revisit her when I have a fresh perspective. The Goddess of Fungi was pretty easy. She just got mushrooms growing out of her. She has like a tutu type skirt, and then this thing that just has mushrooms growing on it, and then she has stockings which have black mushrooms growing on them, and these black things that have white mushrooms growing on them. And her hair is like a bowl cut type thing with mushroom, very easy. Dorma, the other person I mentioned, who's just kind of like a rock, this is her. So she's not cool like Naha. She doesn't know to separate her shapes so well, so she's just kind of one big shape, and she's not a super happy person. Felda is the goddess of the harvest. I wanted a feeling of a cornucopia, with all the tumbling fruits and vegetables coming out, but I don't feel like this worked. Felda is the goddess of the harvest. And then for this one, it's like, it's a bit better. I like that there's plaid, but again, I didn't feel this works. And this is really tricky for me I sort of have a design language that's forming with Wraith, and yet certain people really wouldn't have that. And I'm also trying to connect to just ideas that we already have. So associating harvest with Thanksgiving, at least in North America, that's a thing, and you can think of a lot of the colors being oranges and blacks, things like that, pumpkins and these types of things, and so I kind of wanted that feeling, but at the same time having it still fit in my world, which I'm not sure. In the shit because you are what you eat. Eat that poo-poo. Okay. So I kind of, I guess I was all designed out, and I think this is pretty normal, because I'm doing these every single day, so even if I was working at a studio, you would still get days off where you kind of aren't designing, but for me, I was designing a lot of days without days off, so I just got into, I didn't get any sleep, and I just got into continuous line drawings. Yep, pretty. I mean, some people like these. I personally like them. I wish that's what I could do and that was good enough, but they just look unfinished and I don't know. And then I was on the road. We were, I think, going to another city. So that was something that needed to be done. And yeah. Just more designs. This guy's kind of a I did the head, and then it kind of resembled Patrick Stewart, so I made him Picard, kind of. So back to designs. Here I had a big issue because what I did is I didn't have the right sketchbook, and I got a sketchbook, but it wasn't the sketchbook I like to use. And we had just come back from this other city, and I bought a sketchbook, and it was a Strathmore instead of the Canson 60-pound paper. It was a Strathmore 98-pound, and it's very much wider. Like you can see here, this is kind of yellowed and it's rougher, and this is more clean and white. But because of that, the colors all come out way more intense, which kind of threw me off because I was used to the colors behaving a certain way. And also, it's more like a Bristol type paper. So when you put down marks, they smudge. The ink doesn't get absorbed in the paper so easily. So I was doing Zyka's design, the goddess of vengeance, and I wanted something sharp and, I don't know, knife-like and scary, and didn't really work out. And I also got some new ink. So this is a Winsor & Newton ink color called Scarlet, and this is already toned down a lot, and it's way too strong. So I made a color chart just to try and figure out what the colors are and, you know, what I can play with. But yeah, the colors are way stronger. And here's a good example of them smudging. So this is awful. I just ruined her. This doesn't look anything like Tanis. I think I did well with her portrait in the beginning, but this is just awful. And usually when things turn out poorly, there's a tendency for that failure to compound, and you just make something bad and then another thing even worse. Taliko, I think she's a goddess of fishing. I think she turned out okay. Still needs work, but Tanis was a complete disaster. So with Listel, she's a goddess of music, and I wanted her to be kind of simple, but very tall, very elegant. But yeah, just a very simple design. Whereas the goddess of literature, I wanted her to be a bit more complicated, but not really. And these two aren't to scale. But she's not very coordinated, I guess. But she tries to be one of those cool goddesses with the big things and a lot of stuff going on, but not really pulling it off, especially because she's so short and she didn't opt for that super tall thing that makes her look like a bookmark. Karis, I think, turned out good. I like her actually better in this one. I feel like it captures more of her personality. She's a goddess of fighting. Avlin, her full body thing, goddess of chemistry. It's working just fine, I think. So I've got all the 99 goddesses done in terms of the drawing portrait part. So now it's just fleshing out the design. So Tarana, the goddess of logic, is very like this, like, I don't know, like a circuit board type feeling. Whereas Mara's a lot more simple again and not at all fashionable. Fela Mariatni, I changed the spelling of her name. She's very simple, but I wanted her to be elegant because she is one of the nicer ones, I guess. She's calm. She doesn't look too happy in this one, though. And then Derla, the goddess of the hunt, I wanted her to wear like camouflage type stuff. I like Durazna. Durazna is the goddess of promises, and I figure she has this chain that binds you and forces your promise to, or try to make it so your promise lasts. Random faces. I tried to do some blending here. The colors are so intense, especially on this paper, that it doesn't really work. Aspirate, she's the one that I mentioned. She's trying to be cool, but isn't really. And so I thought, well, what kind of clothes would a person who's trying to be cool wear, but who isn't really? And I don't know if that's, maybe it's offensive. It's just ideas. It's nothing important. I don't know if I nailed it or not. But anyway, these are some random faces. I like this guy, though. I like him as a random face. Khalefa, I like her too. The goddess of philosophy. I was imagining that the bracers are like gold or rose gold. Just something kind of Egyptian, but also regal. And here's Masada, goddess of metal. So again, back to that Copic marker that's kind of going out, although these legs are too far apart. I mean, the silhouette for this is pretty god-awful. But let's imagine it's not, because I'll make it fine in the final version. I think, these ones are okay. Sylvia, I like. Here's just Dora's nothing. She can bind someone to their words and force them to be honest, I guess. Minu, I don't think really worked out. I don't think the proportions are working, but I think the outfit, like the design-wise, the outfit's okay. And I guess this is just what happens at times, is sometimes the design, if you focus on the design, it's very hard to sometimes get everything working together. And I guess this is why you would have multiple versions and why it's not so great to do this all traditionally and just do one design and then move on. A lot of these need to be done over and over again, and for more time to be spent on them, for them to get all good. Just some old type of sketching. Here's Arsha. Her design's quite simple, but I don't think it's there yet. I will probably, work on it some more. Johanna just kind of looks like a trash can. I don't know. I wasn't thinking of that in a negative. It just seemed like okay, and I don't know why. Okay, so her abilities are like she can sense things or eliminate her presence, becoming invisible and calming herself and others. That's pretty cool. Okay, that's good. Some of these I forget because it's so many goddesses that I've done. Hera, the goddess of time, not much to her. Vara, the goddess of fire. The colors I didn't have really available, so I had this pink that I used, but I actually find her, I think of her as having dark skin, very rich browns, and then like more fiery colors like oranges and reds and yellows in her outfit, and dark colors as well. Zeronia, the goddess of dreams. I didn't like this one with the black. It just felt too contrasty and it didn't feel like dreamy at all. So I decided to just make it white on white and have her have super long white hair that kind of blends into her clothing and have her clothing be very loose fitting. And I thought that worked a lot better. So here's the goddess of blood. I got rid of the turban, tried a different design, which I'm still not happy with this design with Rhea. I figure she's the type that loses her shoes and stuff. Just whatever. I don't know. Here's Shai, the goddess of ice. I think she's pretty okay. The drawing, could be much better. And I'm going to do posing when I do the final stuff as well. I'll think about posing and making them look cool and everything. Kiri, the goddess of lightning. I probably will make her a bit darker in skin tone. I can't really do too much with what I have, but later I'll be able to do more accurate colored things. And Erza, the goddess of the wind, or goddess of wind, I think. These things flow. I wanted elements that flow, but they look a bit too rigid, so I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work, but I want something that blows in the wind. And then some more random sketching. Goddess of finance. Probably she needs to be a bit taller in terms of her clothing, but basically the stuck-up ones, the ones that take themselves seriously, have this very tall design to them, usually. Like Elise, she's not super stuck-up, but she still has this long proportion, and I like that long proportion. Whereas these two, Shanda and Jensa, Shanda's the goddess of engineering, Jensa the goddess of crafts, they're more grounded, probably walk around a lot more, whereas these ones just float. And all the goddesses are capable of floating, but some of them choose to walk around. And then finally, Laska, goddess of puzzles. She's very confusing, as I said, so I wanted her design to be kind of like, you can make sense of it if she's staying still, but if she's moving around a lot, it's kind of confusing. And that's all on purpose. But I also wanted her design to be kind of silly and lame. And contrasting Lyra, the goddess of baking, I just wanted it to be very simple and white, like a, I don't know, flour. And just, I imagine she smells like just bread, fresh baked bread, and things like that. And Vinita, the goddess of madness, I wanted her to have kind of an outfit reminiscent of someone from a psych ward. So in the next episode, actually, I try painting in the sketchbook, so that's going to be interesting. So yeah, I will work more on rate stuff as well. But yeah, hope you stick around. I hope this helped, and thanks for watching.